Hey, my name's shawnshawn. I sell art on shawnshawn.co. Today we're going to react to an artist called Jazza. So looking at the YouTube, he has his face really loud and prominent with a lot of color. So it's kind of a painting, and he's put paint all over his face, which is really a cool look. I don't know if I would do that, but it definitely sticks out and stands out. And he has almost 6 million followers, so it definitely works. So put some paint on your face, guys. It's very clear. He has a link to his website right off the top and his Facebook and Twitter. So I think that's a really good start for what kind of social media you want there. Like most people don't put their website for some reason, which is really odd. I put my website. I just put my website. So there's kind of a rule with if you give too many people too many options, they don't select anything. They just get choice confused and avoid one. So I just put one link to my website and that's it. So he has his face is kind of original. It's not his real face, but it's kind of his artistically drawn face, so that'll stick out on when you go to different channels. He has members, and he thanks his member channels, which is kind of cool. I didn't know you could add that on the top. He has art challenges, reaction videos, popular uploads. I think I would stick that at the very top. He has shorts, which shorts are becoming very huge with Instagram and TikTok, so definitely do shorts. That's a good recommendation. Virtual reality creativity, fan art and character draw, product reviews, unboxings. So he has a lot of stuff. He also has Jazza Studios, Jazza Records, Tabletop Time. Let me check out what this is. I don't know what Jazza Studios. Okay, so that's a vlog channel. So this is fine. We're on the right channel. So first video is cheap versus expensive oil paint. Is it really worth it? So he has some really fun, quirky start here. The really fun thing is it's actually a box on a table with a hole in the table. But you don't realize it, he sticks it on there, and so he's done a double cut on the video edit, so you got two different tables. And so he just pulls whatever out of the box. That's obviously this magical box that has more than you can actually carry. Very cool editing.
There it is. I found it. This is the reason you've all come here. That's the reason I am here making this video today.
There's double two cuts there. He has the first cut, he puts it on their table, switches the table, pulls everything out, cut it again back to the regular table so that you don't see that there's a hole in the table. So it's a really cool.
The most expensive oil paint I could find in the world. I have purchased 9 tubes of the most expensive oil paint I could possibly find. But I thought I would keep this video to, I guess you could say, the more conventional style. An off-the-shelf oil paint.
All right, so he's going to compare the two different tapes. So let's get a little bit further ahead in the video.
Put them up against each other and see if an uneducated artist like myself, when it comes to the finities of classical painting, can tell the difference and even describe and share the experience of comparing these cheap paints versus the expensive paints. I've done a lot of intro, a lot of receipts. Let's actually use some freaking paint, shall we? I can't just put oil paint straight down.
So he did a little fast cut there where he cuts it. He takes the video and then he cuts it into short quick so the pacing is much faster, so that's a really cool video effect.
To put down some liquid white, as Bob Ross says frequently. And I don't have liquid white, but you can make it. You just get some titanium white, a few drops of artist's linseed oil, not too much, just a little bit. That was too much. And mix that all up together. It sort of looks like meringue.
And this is a really cool effect. Let's go a little further here.
And we have the vermilion. The sound effects add to the prestige. I guess that's the oil not mixed in. So I don't know, maybe the other paint will be the same. So last but not least with our little experiment, yellow. Ooh. All right, that did gross me out a bit. Oh my God. This is like the poopiest art supply I've ever worked with. Except for poop, No, I haven't worked with poop. But should I? Let me know in the comments. Art with poop. You know I'm not above it.
So he's going to spread all the paint. Let's go to the expensive paint now.
Oh, workable. Let's just try the other colors. Chinese vermilion. I forgot to do the mix thing, because that was a way better way of doing it. It is like immediately, like it feels super legit. I mean, look at that. Definitely much richer going down. I did it again! Forget every time. Gotta mix that shit. You roll it into the palette knife like once or twice and there's a huge difference. Just look at that. Okay, immediately. I'm starting to get wowed. I'm feeling the flow develop in me artistically a little bit quicker.
You can also see his logo pops up, which is really cool.
I will say that I feel like that is an immediate huge difference. These are really consistent and the colors look really refined but have the capacity to be really deep. Whereas these almost look like Play-Doh.
I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit.
I've at least watched enough Bob Ross to try and fake it till I make it, so here I am attempting to do so by painting two pictures in the style of a Bob Ross wet on wet painting, of course, not exact copies of each other or any particular Bob Ross painting, but compositionally the same and requiring the same techniques and general layering. Now, I started off working with cheap paint, and while the sky gradient was pretty easy and pleasant to put down, the problem started to appear when I used the palette knife to put down the mountains. This stuff was way too liquid. It doesn't cover with enough opacity when I put it down, and as I tried to work in the highlights and the shadows of the clouds and the mountains, it became abundantly clear that this stuff does not like to be layered.
Yeah, just... That's the first thing you learn in oil paint or any kind of paint. Just never buy the cheap quality. Just go always start an artist brand. You don't have to get the super expensive, but you definitely want to get at least your basic artist quality paints. It makes a huge, huge difference. And you just waste less paint, so because it's more pigment in the actual paint.
It's so wet that when I lay down the undiluted paint on top of a thin layer of sky or mountains that I've already put down, it immediately mixes and loses its color. And I found myself constantly cleaning and reapplying the paint to my brush or palette knife.
This looks terrible, but... Alright, let's go. This is...
Lighter paint to get any sort of contrast to stick to the canvas at all.
So he's still in the crap paint. Let's go to the expensive paint.
Inside, in the end, it really just came down to
very nice
blending out
detail.
as much of the
Zoomed
oil
in on
as
the
I
paint.
could before putting the paint down, and that wasn't always entirely successful anyway. The rush you get knowing you're handling something that feels like it should be very special, whether it is or not is another question, but the rush, that definitely surprised me. But now let's get to the actual painting experience. And the initial experience, I have to say, is night and day compared to the cheap paint. Where the cheap paint's problem was that it was too wet, it was almost a problem in reverse that this stuff was too dense and dry. I needed to use a little paint thinner quite often to get enough color moving around or load it onto the brush. And I also had to use a lot of force with the brush to push enough of the color down.
So you can get rid of that by blending a little bit of walnut oil in each one of your colors. It'll thin it out and you'll still get a really nice mix. So that's a advanced oil painting technique.
Down and lay down broader areas onto the canvas or to spread it around. Now, this is definitely good in the long term. It means that the biggest strength of this paint is that the pigment is so densely contained. But it did feel super tacky when getting the paint from the palette into the bristles of the brush. But once the paint was in the bristles, applying it to the canvas couldn't feel more contrasted with the cheap paint. Wherever my brush touched the canvas, the exact amount of paint that touched the surface was applied to the painting. It was really hard to get used to, honestly. It revealed my flaws as a painter and made me loosen up much more and work with more flow and in a lot more stages to get to the result I wanted, and much slower. And if I didn't do that, if I didn't take my time or work in more layers and steps, everything I did looked super harsh. I learned this very quickly. The white paint was weird. The consistency was more like glue than paint. But it seemed different to the other paints from the beginning. Even when I applied it to the palette, it spread in a really liquefied way and it didn't lift into the brush bristles very easily at all.
I don't know why he's using brown for mountains. This was so weird.
I completely ditched trying to do the mountain highlights with this white paint as it just didn't do what I needed, and instead I turned to my Artist Spectrum titanium white. So starting again with the mountains, I tried to approach them in the same way that I did with my cheap painting, but it wasn't anywhere near as simple. I mean, don't get me wrong, the paint did everything I asked it to. The problem is, I mean, a few things, I guess. I feel like I was over-asking the paint, I was overworking the mountains and over-blending my colours, but I was also overthinking. Probably because I felt the perfectionist in me take hold much more working with this stuff, but all that aside, the great news is that this stuff is so matter-of-fact to work with. I just scraped the area clean and started again when I wasn't satisfied. And that also didn't feel particularly intimidating to do because I knew it would do it very effectively.
So it's a pretty nice video. Let's scroll to the very end here.
Good enough, but the outcome is okay, and it was a fun enough process and actually a lot quicker to work with and get a result out of than the expensive stuff. Speaking of which, let's have a look at the expensive painting. I think just by virtue of the amount of paint I used, this painting is minimally worth at least several $100s. Now, of course, I am not a classical painter, I am not Bob Ross, so, you know, there's only so much I can do to show off the difference between these two effectively. However, I'm pretty sure just through the time lapse and through some of the zoom in stuff, you can see that this stuff is really, really thick to work with and it layers really well, and it's really, really fun to sort of rework.
All right, so he has a really nice tie into the video. Let's go, and he summarizes it, which is a good thing to do at any kind of video. The next video, this one is called Pendulum Painting is a Nightmare. So that's always fun. You kind of take a style and try to paint it.
I'm gonna bet you've seen these before. Referred to by some as pendulum painting, where you hang paint in some sort of receptacle with holes in it and swing it or spin it or flip it, or do all sorts of funky stuff with it, and you get all sorts of funky results. I have no idea how to do this, but it's gonna get messy. We're gonna start with a double before we dive, and we are going to dive, but we have to sort of figure out the finer point of it first. We're starting off with just coffee cups. Bit of a shake. Do you know the trick to avoid being precious about stuff?
So I like to start the video, he's straight on the camera, he's gonna introduce it, kind of gives a preview of what it'll look like.
It's the same with sketchbooks. If you have a beautiful new sketchbook and it's like, I don't wanna get it messy, and what if I don't do the perfect thing?
So it's kind of funny, it's this chit chat back and forth. Scroll ahead a little bit. It's okay.
Next, let's take our learnings, right? Step 1, pre-prepare the hole. Cover it up. Step 2, prepare the paint. I'm gonna thin that down. I have something I wanna try. I'm getting ambitious far too quickly. I wanna see if there's a way I can layer a different color on top without it mixing into the purple. Let's go orange. I'm gonna pour it into the cup with something covering the end and then just go and just pull the end out. 1, 2, 3, pull. There you go, okay. I think that might have worked.
Thanks,
Round of applause for Rob. You all right? You didn't get paint on you? Oh, it's a disaster.
It's fine.
Oh, the purple's too thick. It's just gonna poop on the canvas. Let's go back.
That's pretty funny. I didn't make it thin enough. I love all these disasters, it makes it really fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, who's silly now,
Okay.
Gareth? I'm ready to go. An audience is built up and they're with bated breath. 3, 2, 1, go! Whoa! Whoa! Oh my God! I don't think I have the ratio right, but it's sort of doing something.
It's cool, but then you have that very first splash in the beginning, which makes it look a little sloppy. That looks super dope, but how do you stop it and catch it, you know?
It's really cool. The mix is off. I think it's still too paint.
It's very, I think it's very nice except for these two little splash marks. And I think you took it off too late. You should have pulled it before you still had kind of a white circle, but it's pretty cool. Here goes another one.
Maybe I've got it the wrong way around. This was sploppier, but it was more watery. Maybe it's gonna be more painty, I don't know.
This is great. He's kind of pulling out the drama of that it's really hard to work with. So let's go to the next part.
All these stupid internet guides. This is why I hate instructions. Stupid. Why am I so angry? I want to be good at this quicker. That was very unwise. Didn't get paint on the acoustic tiles that I've been very protective of. That's the important thing. But I got it all over me. Oh no, I'm sorry everyone, I'm such a disappointment. Unless I'm needing...
Yeah, you definitely, for this style of painting, you need a huge, like, everything protected. I got paint on the walls here, so hopefully the landlord never watches this. Let's go ahead a little bit.
Way down the bucket with this, see what happens, and hope for the best. Hey, I'm gonna do something a little crazy.
I just don't know how you catch it.
I just wanted to see if that creates a cool sort of overlay of two new, like a new pattern over the previous pattern I was building. Okay, this is starting to be fun. I mean, it was fun before, but now it's even more fun that it's starting to look cool.
I'll give it, it looks a lot better. The yellow, I'm not really convinced, but you could shorten out the edges.
Working now, it went off at the end, you can see the bucket's weight has...
So I think he's, you know, kind of self-examining. I think if you cut this canvas down, it could be really cool. I mean, the ends I don't think you can really use, but it's getting better. You definitely need to practice a lot.
There's no sploot painting. Not sure how to make knot. We embrace the chaos at this point. I need a really big arc of motion for this one. Whoa! This is gonna be a problem. Shit, no.
Don't touch it.
But it's gonna hit the paint. I don't know what to do. It might be okay now that it's got its momentum. Oh, but that looks pretty satisfying. I think we've got a nice, pattern, people.
You gotta waste a lot of material to get good at this. I would suggest working with paper for maybe 50, 60 paintings and then switch to this bigger scale. Let's scroll ahead a bit.
Feel my emotions.
I like how he's getting angry and stuff, but the video makes it really a lot funner to go along with. There's a lot of emotion in there.
Ooh. All right, okay.
Oh, that's a bad.
I actually did intend to add like one last bit over there, but finito. Stopping right here, you can hang that.
Oh man, that black was perfect, and then the purple is just crazy. Doesn't look good. Like he had a sellable painting, I think, with the black, but then he added that purple, and it's all fucked up. All right, let's go to the next page. All right, this one. Let's see. Get the settings right. This is called I Turn Pokemon Cards into Tiny Worlds.
I'm going to bring these giant Pokemon cards to life with miniature worlds that you can look through, fully lit and leaping out at you. On this video 4. There are videos by channels like North of the Border who have made dioramas out of Pokemon cards. And then inspired by that, Dave on Tabletop Time created this 3D giant Pokemon card. I saw this and was jealous. And I was like, Dave, I'm stealing that and doing that myself. More. Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charmander. To be precise, I used the help of a
I think Charmander is supposed to be the valuable one.
laser cutter to cut 3 boxes that are the shape and size of the large Pokemon cards. I also laser cut an interior box slightly larger than the frame of the Pokemon card frame itself, in which I'd be building the little dioramas. And I wouldn't need that big box until the end when I put it all together. So let's start off with Squirtle.
He has some really nice zoom shots in here, going back and forth, and explain the whole process, which is good.
And here is my raw 3D printed Squirtle tested out in the scene to see if the scale looks right, and that looked pretty bloody good. Once my little earthy sculpture was dry, it was time to give it coverings. Putting a watery PVA mix through the river and putting down some slightly larger pebbles and rocks first before covering it all in sand. That way the larger little rocks would stick first and definitely have something to grab to, where the sand would give it most of the coverage. Then I went through and did the same thing on the surface areas, but this time with some really vibrant grass mixes. Left to dry overnight, when I came back and went to brush the rest off, most of it stuck really, really well. So now it's just a matter of dressing my little Squirtle set.
That's really cool, the grass. Skip ahead a little bit. I like the detail shots, are very, very close, so you get a really good view of what's going on. Definitely looks pretty cool. Definitely fun. Really cool project kind of style painting.
Now obviously a lot of this project is craft techniques and miniature diorama building stuff. But the hero of the build is the Pokemon itself.
Okay, let's skip ahead a little bit.
Nestled a little bit lower in the scene. I wanted it to be like he was found in a little forest glade. Sculpting those hills out with the sculptor mold and the concrete color compound mixed in, I set aside to dry and came back to dress it up. Mixing green paint with my PVA water mix of glue, I gave the whole thing a really heavy base layer in a very fine, rich green flocking. And when that was dry, I laid down another mix of thinned down PVA and applied static grass. This stuff is so fun. If you use the static grass applicator and poke a little pin or a bit of metal into the glue, it runs a static charge through the water and makes all of that static grass stand on end. It's really satisfying.
That looks really cool. All right, let's go a little further ahead, guys. I gotta say, this isn't like traditional painting, but this is a super fun art project and really cool. Also a really cool niche because I don't think there's as many. There are channels that specify in figurine painting. This is kind of a smorgasbord art channel, so it's kind of cool.
Take that clear acrylic off and take all of it out for a bit of a base coat, including a little extra piece I had ready for Charmander to stand on.
I know, I saw black. Ooh, red.
I made sure to spray paint the whole cave in one direction when it comes to the lighting, making sure that the orange and yellow was coming up from underneath. That will be further accentuated with the lighting that I can add later. With Charmander's little rock glued in place, there really wasn't a lot of set dressing to do on this one except for one very important thing, the lava. Following a similar initial method to the river I did for Squirtle, I mixed up a UV resin cup with a bunch of yellow alcohol ink.
It's pretty cool how he's putting this together. I really like it, actually. It's a very cool project.
I just want to say I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I have cherished this whole project. I love it. Thank you to Dave for making this and inspiring me to make a bunch of my own. What this leads to, I don't know. Do you want me to make a whole deck worth? Do you want me to battle with 3D giant Pokemon cards? Look.
Very, very nicely done. And he ends the video kind of summarizing it, how he felt about the whole product, which I think is a strong way to end a video. Let's go to the website. So the website is Jazza Studios. See, that's not the front page. So let's see what the front page looks like. Okay, so the first website has kind of a 90s feel to the website. I don't know why. Maybe he hasn't updated the website or he's using a very old template. It has kind of these paint streaks on the side. Kind of reminds me of MySpace a little bit, which is kind of funny. He mentions his shops, who he is a little bit. He has the latest events, which is good. He has some kind of tag for artists to follow him and paint something. Oh, so these are artist competitions for artists, so that's kind of cool. Because probably he has a lot of art fans on his YouTube channel. He has media, let's see what that is. Okay, so he's worked on movies, he's worked on games, it looks like. So that takes him to a whole game channel where he has some stuff. He has a tutorials page. I like this website. It's pretty simple. It's not too much. Just very simple, easy to digest. He has one of his sample videos. I guess he just has one video. I mean, he could have done, like I done, in mine I actually have kind of the different styles I do, like one video sample, one video sample, one video sample. And I think that's a better way to do it. He just has one, but to each his own how you want to do that. I recommend using that with YouTube because you can embed it on your website. It doesn't go to YouTube. It's a little risk that people jump to YouTube, but he has a contact form, just really simple. He has a shop. Let's see what the shop looks like. That was where we started. He has a coloring book, anatomy bundle, faces bundle. These are really easy prices too. I mean, $5-6. I mean, you give it to any kid. So you can get any artist, any especially parents, they probably buy stuff for their kids. They could definitely get this kind of stuff and follow along. So it's really cool to probably track the kid audience, I think. Maybe more professional ones too, with like drawing funny faces, because that's more advanced drawing techniques. First you get like kind of the perfected one, and then you get kind of the cartoonish look. So I think the cartoonish look is actually harder because you're exaggerating the features and you have to know what to exaggerate, what not to exaggerate. And he has PayPal. You can just pay through PayPal. So I think it's a pretty straightforward website. I really liked his website. It's really fun and just jazzy and light. It's called Jazza, so it's kind of funny. Maybe that was originally his graffiti name. I'm not sure why it's called Jazza, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point it was a graffiti moniker, because it doesn't sound like a natural name at all. It was probably, maybe his graffiti name and he doesn't have any of it up here, which is smart. You don't want to really cover it. If you have kind of a lot of huge fine art work where you probably don't want to advertise your graffiti too much, although a lot of people do it. You have to, if you advertise it, it has to be all legal street murals, because if it's illegal, the cops can technically use that as evidence, so it's not really smart. But you see graffiti artists do it all the time for some reason. Before they were smarter in the 90s, they just had black books. They only had, so if they, as long as they didn't know where you lived, you never got caught, right? So it's like now these guys are advertising what they do. It's like you're just providing the cops all of the evidence. You know, before the cops actually had to walk the yards and collect all the photographs. But yeah, it's kind of interesting what these newer graffiti artists do. But it makes sense. They want to live in the modern day, so they want to get into YouTube. So I can understand it from a modern graffiti artist. It's really hard not to use YouTube. But yeah, I think I like his channel a lot. It's really fun. It's just kind of a smorgasbord of art, different projects. So it's kind of like he paints in anything, which allows him to have a much broader base of audience. He's painting figurines. He's painting different styles of paint that he's testing out, hydro dipping, whatever that is. I think that's where you dip into a paint pool and like usually for car coatings and reaction videos, which I do. So that's a really strong thing he does. So I think he has a lot of really cool things. If you want to just kind of get into figurine art, I think you can learn a lot from Jazza. I think he knows some other stuff about art, but he's more, I think he does a lot on the side. Maybe he's doing it more full-time now. It's hard to tell. But some of the painting projects, it looks like it was the very first time he did it. So like, especially with that drip painting, it didn't look like he was an expert at all. But I mean, it's kind of cool to show where you start, and then if you get better later, you're better. So it's kind of a really fun channel, I think. I'd encourage you guys to watch it. If you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next Artist React video.